Hello YouTube, Dave here again. In today's video I'm going to take a look at the newest release for D&D 5th edition, which is the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. At the time of this recording it's currently November 2nd, so the official release date for all different types of stores is, I believe, November 3rd. So by the time this video is uploaded, it'll either be the night before or the day that it gets released. This is the first supplement to actually be released for 5th edition. Everything except for the core books and the DM screen that's been released to date have been adventures or campaigns. So although some of them did have a few kind of like background features, Prince of the Apocalypse had the elemental evil player's companion, which had some races and a few spells, but that was mainly just a free PDF that you downloaded. So this is the first actual dedicated supplement, and I was a little bit concerned when this initially released, or when it was initially announced, I should say. I was kind of afraid that it was going to be one of those books similar to things like the Power books from 4th edition, or the complete books from 3rd edition, or just a lot of the supplements from previous editions, which were focused mainly on introducing new class features and feats and elements and stuff like that, mechanical stuff. And I have to say, as much as I was concerned about that, I'm really actually pleasantly surprised and blown away by the quality of this book. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a flip through for it. We'll talk about each of the chapters, and then I'll kind of give my final thoughts about it. So in addition to being the first supplement, it's also the first campaign source book. So it actually details a lot of the region for the Sword Coast in Faerun. And the first chapter itself, is actually dedicated to just kind of setting the flavor and the feel of the realm. So it talks a little bit about some of the regions in very brief detail, as well as going over things like, just a little map there. It does go over some of the other regions as well, like Karatura, which I believe was which his own campaign setting was kind of, I believe it was like an Aztec type of setting. Sakara, which I believe was used for Al-Qadim, as well as a few other things. It does go over the calendar in the Forgotten Realms, including the names for all the months of the year, as well as some of the festivals like Shield Meet, which is kind of like the equivalent of a leap year, Midsummer, things like that. Talks about the season, and it goes over a little bit of a brief timeline. So it goes over some of the more interesting parts of Faerun's or Toral's past, including stuff from way back, thousands upon thousands of years ago, to the more recent stuff, like the Time of Troubles, which was, I believe, an integral part of the 2nd edition Forgotten Realms campaign setting. The Return of Nethril, which was part of the 3rd edition setting. The Spell Plague, which was part of the 4th edition setting. And it even goes into the Second Sundering, which there was a series of novels about. In addition to that, it also goes over things like the significance of the weave, religion, including a list of all the deities in the Forgotten Realms. It brings back some of the previous gods that a lot of people really liked, like Baal, the god of murder, is once again back in 5th edition. It also includes or keeps some of the 4th edition deities as well. So Amontor, the god of the sun, and Osmodeus, god of indulgence. So they both are carryovers from 4th edition. So I'm kind of glad that they kept Amontor there, and instead of just having Lathander, because I honestly don't really like the Lathander quite as much. We always found it difficult for whatever reason to take him seriously as a deity. In addition to that, it goes over some of the different pantheons, like the Dwarven, Elven, Drow, and Halfling, and it even gives descriptions of the different gods. It goes into a lot more detail than I was really expecting, and I'm kind of glad to see it. Another interesting thing about the way that this book is written overall is, instead of being kind of like a dry, just like these are the facts type of thing, it's almost written as if it's from the point of view of somebody trying to explain these different aspects of the Forgotten Realms to someone. So it almost has like sort of a personal spin on everything, which I actually kind of like. I think it's just sort of a clever way of writing it, instead of just having it be kind of dry and just straightforward. So I do like that about it. like I said, it goes into quite a bit of detail with the gods. So that was chapter 1, which set sort of the overall feeling of the realms. Chapter 2 is probably the largest chapter in the book. And this is basically the setting itself for the Sword Coast. So it goes over a lot of the different settlements, areas that you can travel to. Some of the key ones that it has is, a thing for Baldur's Gate, including a map there. It also talks about places like Long Saddle. So if you've read any of the Salvatore novels, you know about the Harples and Long Saddle. So the Dwarven settlements, Neverwinter, Silvery Moon, Waterdeep, which it has up here, and it even goes into places like, I think Luskan was one of the ones that it talks about a little bit later on. But there's the Dwarf Holds, Citadel of Felbar, Gonalgrim, Mithril Hall. Has some nice artwork. I don't think there's a single 2-page spread that doesn't have some piece of artwork on it. The artwork's really nice in this book. The information, again, a lot of great information in here. Really surprised by how much detail it kind of goes into. And it doesn't go into things like, this is the population, this is the, the racial mix, or, some of the more just statistical things. But it does give a nice sense of what these places are like. It goes into quite a bit of detail on, Candlekeep, for example. Darkhold. And just quite a few places. It actually, again, is almost, I think, close to 60 pages worth of information just on the setting itself. So my fear is that it was going to be mainly dedicated to, there's Luskan there. My fear that it was going to be mainly dedicated to, adding new class features or rules went away pretty quickly once I realized that, the first 101 pages are really just all dedicated to flavor text that helps kind of create the sense of what the realms is like. So about 2/3 of the book is purely flavor, which I love. I didn't want to see a whole bunch of just rules or what they call crunch. I wanted to see a lot of flavor text and a lot of things to, kind of help flesh out the world. As far as chapter 3 goes, which is all about the races, it mostly just kind of describes what the races are like in the Forgotten Realms. So using the dwarves as an example, in the player's handbook there's the hill dwarves and the mountain dwarves. In Forgotten Realms they go by shield dwarves and gold dwarves. So it just kind of gives a little bit of a physical description of what they look like, the kind of the areas of the Forgotten Realms that they inhabit, and it tells you what type of dwarf you use from the player's handbook. So the shield dwarves have the racial traits of the mountain dwarves from the player's handbook, and the gold dwarves are more like the hill dwarves from the player's handbook. Now, and it even gives a picture of a gray dwarf there, because they tend to have a much darker complexion, where they live more in the kind of the southern lands. But it's nice to see that there. It does introduce the Durgar as a playable race, so it has all their abilities. They get the standard dwarven abilities, so what they show here is what they get in addition. So their strength goes up by 1, for example, and they have their Durgar magic, which allow them to reduce or enlarge, as well as cast invisibility. And it goes into information on the deities, and does this for pretty much all the standard races. And what I actually really like about it is it includes the alphabet for the dwarves, the elves, and the common tongue. So, that's actually really nice. I really like that about it. So, with the elves, there's the sun elves, moon elves, and wood elves, as well as the drow. So nothing new there, but it does, again, give the elven alphabet. So if you wanted to create an interesting handout, you could actually have it written in an elvish or dwarven script. And halflings and humans, I believe, pretty much just share. There's the common one there. Now, it does go into some of the other races as well. It brings the deep gnomes, or the Svirfneblin, into the game. So if you wanted to play deep gnome, there's your opportunity there. Now, one of the things that I actually really like, I think this is kind of a cool addition, is for half-elves. There's a half-elf variant that it allows them to give up their skill versatility trait. But if they give that up, they actually choose a racial feature that's more reminiscent of their elven descendancy. So like a half wood elf can choose the elf weapon training, the fleet of foot, or mask of the wild racial features. If it's a half elf that's a moon or a sun elf, it can have the weapon training, or it can have the extra cantrip. And if you choose a half drow, you get like the drow magic, which is like darkness and I think fairy fire. And then you have like the half elf one, or the half elf aquatic. And so if you're an aquatic elf, you get a swimming speed of 30 feet in exchange for giving up the skill versatility. So I kind of like that. It gives you a little bit more of options with your half elf. But for the most part, that's pretty much it as far as new information goes. It just, a lot of it, what it tries to do is, make the races fit the Forgotten Realms setting. So it explains how tieflings appear, it explains, the Dragonborn, and it just tries to make all the races fit in. Chapter 4 is all about the classes. Now, surprisingly, not all of the classes actually get new abilities or features. I think in particular the Bard and the Ranger just it gives them information on how to fit them into the campaign setting, including, the names of different Bard colleges, or, what types of Rangers there are in the Forgotten Realms. Like I think they give them things like Elven, Human, or I think Dwarven may be the other kind. But a lot of the classes do have new abilities. The thing I like about it is the new abilities aren't put in there for the sake of just having new class features. So, they're done to fit in. A lot of these new class features actually have racial restrictions or some form of restriction on it. So you have like the Battle Rager as a primal path for your Barbarian. And the Battle Rager, again, if you've read Salvatore, you probably know of the Gutbuster Brigade, which are a group of basically insane dwarf barbarians that wear spiked armor, and they basically use their own bodies as weapons. They just dive into combat. They punch, they grapple, and kind of shimmy so that their ridged armor and spiked armor, kind of shreds the flesh of their opponents. So it's really cool to see them in here. There was a Battle Rager class, I think, in the Races of Faerun for 3rd edition, right before 3.5 came out. And I don't think it actually captured the feel of them the way that this does. I mean, this does an absolutely excellent job, and it gives their spiked armor right up down here as well, where it's a new type of armor. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on all the new features. I may do a separate video where I kind of talk about them, but this is just basically a review for the book itself, so I just want to give you an idea of what's in there. So again, the bards just kind of give the new bardic colleges that they use, as well as talking about or showing some new musical instruments. And it does mention how the harpers are, a lot of bards are harpers, so that kind of gives a little bit of a write-up on them in here. The clerics introduces a new domain, which is the Arcana domain. So it's kind of cool. It's a way to sort of mix up your clerical spells with some arcane stuff. Like at first level you get Magic Missile that you can use as a cleric spell. It's always memorized, and it's always part of your spell list. And at a higher level, you actually get the ability to learn 4 spells of arcane spells from 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level. So 1 of each, so 1 6th, 1 7th, 1 8th, and 1 9th level spell. And again, they always considered to be, you add them to your domain spells basically, so they're always prepared, and they always count as cleric spells for you. The druids don't really have anything new either, so it just kind of goes into the information about the different circles, druidic circles. The fighters brings us the Purple Dragon Knight. So if you wanted to play a Purple Dragon Knight, they're in here. They're kind of similar in a way to the Warlord class from 4th edition. So a lot of their abilities that they get kind of revolve around granting things to allies. There's one that allows them to re-roll a saving throw, like an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw. And if they have an ally within a certain number of feet that failed the same check, they get to re-roll as well. The monks just gives a couple of new monastic traditions. So the Way of Long Death and the Way of the Sun Soul, and honestly I didn't really read those too carefully because I'm not a huge monk fan personally. But if you like monks, there's a couple of new things you can choose from there. Paladins get a new oath, so it's called Oath of the Crown. So you basically swear allegiance to a kingdom instead of, things like Archfey or, other things along those lines. Not Archfey, but the oath of the sacred oaths that they have in the player's handbook, which unfortunately escaped me at this time. And again, here's your ranger. So it mostly talks about how to fit them into the campaign setting. So there's no new features for the ranger. I'm a little bit disappointed in that just because Ranger's my favorite class. I know that there was a Ranger variant that Wizards kind of developed. They had the first 5 levels available on their website as one of their monthly articles, I think it was. I didn't really read it too closely, but I think this would have been a great opportunity to actually have that Ranger variant available. So it could have been something that they could have included in this book, but that's okay. I'm sure it'll appear somewhere else. Rogues get some new things, some new archetypes, including the swashbuckler, which makes a lot of sense because the Sword Coast, there's a lot of like a naval or nautical tradition there, so a lot of seafaring. So the swashbucklers would fit in really well there. Sorcerers, it just kind of explains how their origins can work. And it ties wild magic a lot better into the sorcerer class, considering that it's in the Forgotten Realms, than it necessarily did in the player's handbook. So it's nice to see a little bit more integration of the Forgotten Realms flavor into the wild magic, for example. And it introduces a new sorcerer's origin for storm sorcery. I think it does a lot of elemental stuff. Again, I haven't really read it too carefully. I'm not the biggest sorcerer player either, unfortunately. But here we get into the next one is Warlock. Some different patrons, like, it kind of describes what some of the Archfey would be, what some of the Fiends would be, Great Old Ones, and it introduces the Undying as another otherworldly patron that you can choose as well. And when we finally come to Wizards, Wizards introduces the Blade Singers, which are restricted to elves, so it's nice to see those return. I know there was some questions people had asked prior if they were going to introduce something like this, so if you like the Blade Singers, this is definitely the book to get. It has a few extra spells that I think pertain mostly to the Spell Singer class, but again, that's really cool. So those are the classes. The backgrounds for Chapter 5. This is actually really the only chapter I was somewhat disappointed in. There's quite a few new backgrounds introduced into the book. City Watch, Clan Crafter, Cloistered Scholar, Courtier, Faction Agent. There's a lot of things that they introduce. My biggest concern or my biggest issue with it, though, is that one of my favorite things about the backgrounds were the personality traits. The personality traits, the bonds, the flaws, especially the flaws. I loved the flaws. I think there was a great way to kind of flesh out characters. The backgrounds here, almost all of them except for one, just has some new features, like what they get for skills, what they get for, languages or any other, tools or any extra proficiencies, and their equipment, as well as, a couple of, 1 or 2 features. But it uses the characteristics from the player's handbook. So if you want to be a member of a City Watch, you would use the soldier personality traits. So I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. The only one that actually introduces new traits or characteristics is the Far Traveler. And the Far Traveler is someone who is basically from a distant land. So they could be from places like Evermeet, again, Karatura, Sakara, Mulhorund, the Underdark, and it's nice to see, another chart of personality traits. I would have liked to have seen maybe at least 1 or 2 more sets of personality traits, like bonds, flaws, and stuff like that. Because again, I think it would be nice to have a little bit more variety when it comes to those. But that's the only one that introduces anything new. I mean, I probably could have done without, say, an Urban Bounty Hunter, at the expense of having another chart for personality traits for some of the different types. But that's really the only thing that I find disappointing, was the way that they kind of handled the background, because it feels like it's more about just giving the new features than kind of creating new unique characteristics for player characters. The last part of the book is the appendix here, and this is actually something that kind of blew me away, because in no way, shape, or form are, it was Wizards or, Green Ronin, who actually did the writing for this, required to, acknowledge any of the other campaign settings. I mean, the Sword Coast is very much a Forgotten Realms, setting. Very much a part of the Forgotten Realms, but it actually goes into how to introduce some of the new features and elements for the different campaign settings, like Dragonlance, Eberron. For example, with Eberron, it says if you use the Battle Rager, you can have it as a Warforged class, or class option for the Warforged. They incorporate like the armor spikes into their own body type of thing, which is pretty cool. And it also has stuff for Greyhawk as well. No Dark Sun in this one, but it goes over the other ones. And it even has something for like homemade worlds, ways to introduce some of these new options if you have like a homebrew setting. So that's basically the book there. As far as my final thoughts on this go, again, I was really kind of surprised by how much emphasis was put on just creating the atmosphere of the Forgotten Realms into this book. Again, I was really expecting it to be just full of new class features that I wasn't really looking forward to implementing in my campaigns. But it was really a subtle and subdued approach to that. Anything that they added because it made sense for the Forgotten Realms. Adding the Battle Rager, adding the Purple Dragon Knight, having the Blade Singer. Like, those are all things that make sense for the Forgotten Realms. I like that they didn't try to introduce new things for classes if it didn't overly make sense. I know that some of the classes, really, the way that they're designed for the 5th edition core book, makes sense for the Forgotten Realms. So there's not really a need to kind of fix things that aren't broken, I guess, so to speak. The artwork in this book is fantastic. There's a lot of positive things that I like about this book. If you're new, if you're looking to have sort of an established setting that you want to run out of, if you're not comfortable doing your own, this book will definitely get you through that. And it provides a lot of great material to to flesh out and make the campaign setting feel more authentic, which is really again fantastic. The only real downsides are, if you're somebody who wanted to have new features for all the different classes, then unfortunately you're going to be disappointed because the Bard, Ranger, and Druid didn't have anything. Again, I thought it could have been a great opportunity to introduce the Variant Ranger if they wanted to do that. It could have been a good opportunity to have a version of the Druid that has animal companions. Instead of just the focusing on the spell casting or the wild shape type of stuff. So it would have been nice to have had a version like that. The only other sort of, I don't know if necessarily want to say it's a negative thing, but it's something that I'm a little bit concerned about, and that's the fact that as of the recording of this video, there's no official announcement of a dedicated campaign setting book, like what they had with 3rd edition and 4th edition. I'm not sure if this is the way that I want the campaign setting to be handled, because if that's the case, then you're probably going to end up with about 4 or 5 different books. The Out of the Abyss campaign actually has some information that could, almost make it sort of an Underdark setting as well. It's not as comprehensive, but it does give a little bit of information there. I don't really want to see them do that. I don't want them to split it up between 4 or 5 books. Like, I don't want a book for, the East. I don't want a book for the Shining South. I don't want a book for, the Underdark and things like that. In place of just one single comprehensive campaign setting. If they end up releasing books later that go into more detail, then that's fine, and that would be fantastic, because this could be an example of that as well. So I'm hoping that they do release the campaign setting as a single book. My only other kind of beef with it is, once again, and I know I've mentioned this with quite a few things, it would have been nice to have had a fold-out map, a pull-out map that you can actually lay out on the table for all the players to see. It does include a nice map here. It's very nicely drawn, nicely detailed, but at the same time, having something that, may have been attached to the back cover with that, kind of those glue strips that just peel off. It would have been nice to have had something there. Could have been a little bit larger, and again, something that you can fold out and let everybody see. I'm hoping that they do something like that at some point. And if they do a dedicated campaign setting book, that would obviously be the time to do it. But it would have been nice to have had that for this in particular. Other than that, there's nothing really that I can say negative other than those couple of things, which are sort of almost kind of nitpicking. I think it is a fantastic book. It is extremely well written. It's cleverly written, and it turned out significantly better than I actually had expectations for. Another sort of quasi issue could be the price points. So if you live in the United States, it's $39.95, which isn't. It seems a little bit high considering it's only about 160 pages. But in Canada, unfortunately, the dollar is not what it used to be. And it went from, I think it was like $46.99 or $46.95, $47.95 up to $50.95. Again, I ordered mine online, but it still cost, the price still ended up going up. I think I could have paid about $36 for it, but it ended up being a little over $40 because of the drop in the Canadian dollar. So the price again is up there a little bit, but I think honestly, for all the information and the enjoyability of the read, I think it's worth it. So if you're on the fence or if you're kind of contemplating whether you want to get it or not, I hope this helped. I give it a full recommendation. I think that you'll enjoy the book if you end up getting it. And again, this officially launches fully on November the 3rd, so it'll be either the day that this uploads or the day after this uploads. But if you're considering it, check it out. I think that this is sort of almost a must-have for gamers for 5th edition, especially if you're a fan of the Forgotten Realms and want to have some information on the new setting for this edition. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. I thank you very much for all of your support, all of your reviews and comments, and a lot of positive feedback. So I thank you for all of that. The next video that I plan on doing is going to be the video for 3.5 for my retrospective. That should be up probably by the end of this upcoming weekend. So again, thank you very much for watching, and again for all of your wonderful support. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.